Hello, everybody. It is the 3rd of July. By the way, tomorrow is a US holiday. Stock markets are closed, and you know what that means. That means everybody goes to trade crypto. Bitcoin is $70 away from 110,000 as I speak. Anglo Blackson, TND Tesla, Sean D, KA, thank you all for coming. It is Thursday, and this story is called Adoption Meets Ascent. It could be a little bit of a title that doesn't quite make sense right now, but it will in a minute, I promise you. We're going to look at some 6-month returns after this point in time. I'll look at some charts and how I believe Bitcoin is coiling like a spring. We'll talk about how early we are and some price predictions and how Gen Z and Millenials are tired of traditional banks and they're looking for alternatives, and how billionaires are setting up a new Bitcoin bank as well. Craziness. And how Bitcoin does regarding real estate too. Let's get into the story and see what's happening. And I'll try and monitor the chat as well. Abrasive Justin, good to see you, buddy. And of course, just a guy on the internet, not financial advice. And Piper, my friend up in Canada, best channel going by far, and Patreon is amazing. Thanks, Pipes. Good to see you. Good friend of mine back in the day. His name was Mr. Piper, and we all called him Pipes. So I hope it's okay. I call you that too. Next, let's get into some of the Bitcoin news. First of all, the stock market just closed because there's a big holiday in the US tomorrow. However, this is just a little bit of history. I love history, especially financial history. But according to Goldman, today is historically the best day of the year for stocks. You wouldn't quite believe that if you saw the stock market today, but some things are up. The number one performer is DeFi Development Corporation, IRS Energy, Circle, Mths making a little rebound, but that thing's kind of dead. So, things weren't exactly roasting hot on the market side. But that being said, interesting day. Now, what is very interesting, and I did say that typically June is weak, but July is strong, and the second half is strong, and the 6 months, which are the second half, are strong. There's a cool chart here from Bitcoin News. And I just thought it was interesting to analyze the actual differences going back to June 2020. The price of Bitcoin is $9,400. By December of the same year, it went to 29,000. Then June 2021, 37K, went to 60K. June 2022, 32K, went to 16K. That's not good, by the way. That's the bear market. Then 23, we went from 27 to 42K. And June 2024, 67K to 93,400. Currently, the price is 109,900 as we speak. Now, the question is, what happens next? So I decided, I always say if history repeats, and it often does, the average return in the 6 months following June, if we look at all those percentages, obviously June 2020 to December 2020 was the best so far, but the average of all of them is a 61.9% gain, which also includes the negative, okay, in the bear market of 2022. All right. If we get the historic performance over the previous 5 years, if true, if history repeats, if we take the average, that could bring the price to 176,580. I just thought that was interesting, and we'll see if that actually happens or not. Of course, we're going to get diminishing returns, but still not bad. And there's a lot of people calling for $1 million Bitcoin, $250,000 Bitcoin, $200,000 Bitcoin. So we'll see. And some people like the median of 55%. Yes, let me pull that up. Actually, that's well spotted right there from Snaggletooth. Let's go with the median of 55%. Which would be just fine. That'll take us to approximately 170K. Ta-da! That also works. Anything above 120K, and I will be ecstatic. Very ecstatic. That could be a fun episode. Because if we do get to that, that was my 2023 price prediction, about 120K. I think we could actually go a little bit higher to 129K. But if things go really crazy with strategic Bitcoin reserves around the world, all bets are off. We're going really high, really fast. Now, this is the chart. This is Bitcoin on the ATR model. just to give you perspective, a lot of people are so frustrated right now, and I don't understand why. Because we are literally a hair away from the all-time high. A 2% move, and we're there. Not even 1.8, 1.9% move. We're at the all-time high. And that is bonkers. The trend is looking good. The chart is looking good. This thing has no sell signals. And there's a lot of liquidity up there too, between $112,000 and $115,000. If the price does spike, and typically it can over these US holiday weekends, there could be a lot of pain for a lot of people who are short. Do not be short going into this weekend. Not financial advice, but that is kind of where the chart has come from since, well, the last 3 or 4 years, to give you a good perspective. Now, tons of analysts are talking about this $120,000 level and that it could hit in the next few days. So it's not just the chart telling us that. It's not just the coiling up price, the technical indicators, but a lot of other chatter out there that we could hit 120K real fast. Remember, risk happens fast. It doesn't gradually creep up there. Once it breaks through the all-time high, 112K, if there's a lot of liquidations, there'll be a lot of short covering, and that'll drive the price to the moon pretty quick as well. Now, let's talk about where we are in the actual life cycle of Bitcoin. This is from Bitcoin News. And I love this because not only did it take into account different adoption paths, it talks about the internet in 1990, that's where we are currently in Bitcoin, or social media in 2005. Imagine social media has been around for over 20 years. What a curse. Anyway, but I guess Twitter's okay. Online banking, 1996. We'll talk about banking today too. And Bitcoin in 2025 is where we are at 3% adoption, ladies and gentlemen. People think it's over. No, we've only just begun. Very bright future ahead as well. And not just that, the other crazy thing I want you all to consider when you think it's all over is we're at 3% adoption. Once we get to 5 or 6% adoption, that's when things really kick off. Okay. And remember as well that this thing is a much harder asset than ever before. As adoption comes in and people try to snag their Bitcoin, there's very little to go around. And that means the price will go up. And that is exciting. Hello, Scotland. We have Scotland in the house. Drop a comment below. I'm in a good mood, so I'll shout out your country as well. Or drop a flag. See if I can read the flag. Now, another little bit of bullish news. Another 200K target from a different analyst, Standard Chartered Geoffrey Kendrick, believes Bitcoin will hit 200K in 2025. And that's only with 1% of ETF inflows coming from pensions so far. His thesis, Geoffrey's thesis, is that pensions are going to start doubling, tripling down on Bitcoin, which means not a 1% allocation, but maybe a 2% or a 3% allocation. And remember, there are trillions in pensions, and that will drive things to the moon. So we have Liverpool and Tyler in the US, and we have Slug in Yuma, Arizona. This is cool. I could sit here all day reading flags. A lot of Americans getting ready for the 4th of July. Be careful out there with the fireworks and stuff. Anyway, we will see if Standard Chartered are correct. Again, they are a very pro-Bitcoin bank, and they've made a lot of predictions. Not all have come through, but fingers crossed they will. Now, another big institution that is just ginormous. This news took me by surprise. And BlackRock, okay, 14, 15 months ago, they started the BlackRock ETF. They also have another product, which is an S&P 500 ETF. That's considered their flagship product. Okay, that's what they call the iShares Core S&P 500 ETF. The ticker for that is IVV. Sounds like an IV. That's how you remember it. But they have a lot of money in AUM, I think about 660, 630 billion. But their fee is very small, 0.03% fee. And they launched this a long time ago, ladies and gentlemen. But guess what? Their new product, the IBIT BlackRock Bitcoin ETF, now makes more in annual fees than their flagship product. Okay. Remember Larry Fink was very bullish on Bitcoin? He thought it could be big for the business. Well, he was right, but it was on nobody's bingo card that their BlackRock ETF would make more than their flagship product in like 14 or 15 months. Absolutely bonkers numbers. Crazy to think of. Now, there are some other crazy stuff happening with banking. This is Peter Thiel. He is somebody not to be faded. He is part of the PayPal mafia, started PayPal. He has a love-hate relationship with people like Elon Musk. He knows David Sachs very well, etc. Also PayPal mafia. Elon also PayPal mafia. In fact, that class of PayPal mafia is a bunch of legends, but Peter Thiel is also behind companies like Palantir and others. But I go back to Silicon Valley Bank's collapse in 2023. You had lots of billionaires that had billions stuck in the bank. And they spent a weekend sleepless and panicking, finding out how they could turn their cash deposits into Bitcoin over a weekend. And they couldn't because the rails were closed. And this is a big part of the problem that Peter Thiel, who is also very pro Bitcoin, wants to solve. They're going to launch a bank called Erebor, which is some, I don't know, sci-fi name from some movie or book or show or something that I don't know. But it'll be a new type of bank. It'll be kind of based in Bitcoin and have crypto rails to really help those who are very much underserved by financial institutions. Those that people want to work 24/7, where the money will not be trapped if a bank goes under, etc. The bank also plans to focus on AI and Silicon Valley startups and cater to billionaires, etc., and lots of other innovation, borrowing, lending, etc. So this could be a very interesting institution too. But other things are happening, which is also related to Bitcoin and crypto behind the scenes. Legacy banks are hated by Gen Z and millennials. I'll tell you a very funny story for a second. One of these banks here, I think it was Wells Fargo, it was the only ATM that was close. I had to take out $1,000, and normally it gives it out in $100 bills. This one gave me a whole bunch of 10s and 20s. So I walk into the bank with a stack this high. I said, "Can you turn this into $100 bills?" They said, "No." I said, "These just came from your ATM outside. Here's the receipt." They said, "No." "Why not?" "Because you're not a customer with this bank." I said, "I used to be, but not now." But they give you money and then they won't take it back. It's just incredible. That's how terrible these institutions are. So no wonder the Gen Z and millennials hate them. But what's also happening is John Deaton, who was the guy who went up against Elizabeth Warren, but she won. Anyhow, he believes that banks in the not so distant future will be smacked by companies like Robinhood app. Maybe he didn't say Jupiter specifically, but some of the very innovative stuff that's happening on crypto rails, Coinbase, etc., Kraken, tokenization of everything, and a one-stop shop for all types of loans, mortgages, you name it, car loans, etc., peer-to-peer loans. This will absolutely disrupt the traditional banking system. And also, instead of giving you nothing on your money, they'll actually pay you yield on your money too. So the Gen Z and the millennials, the younger people, are very clever at sniffing out better rails for banks, and that's why the banks are concerned. So we're beginning to really see how crypto Bitcoin is really beginning to disrupt everything right now, just like Michael Saylor is disrupting the debt markets too. And this one is kind of staggering as well. I thought it was worth sharing. The amount of Bitcoin it cost to buy an average home in 2016 was 680 Bitcoin. Today, it's 3.5 Bitcoin. Staggering difference. So Bitcoin has done, if you imagine the pair trade of Bitcoin divided by real estate, and real estate has appreciated a lot since 2016. In fact, real estate's gone up over 40% since 2020, probably another 40% since 2016. So call it doubling, maybe more in many markets, tripling. But even at that, Bitcoin as a pair against real estate has done 195x in that same time frame. So I shared a very interesting post last week on Patreon about how somebody took 800 Bitcoin They sold it to buy a house for about 300,000. And then 3 years later, they sold the house to try buy the Bitcoin back again, just in 3 years, and they can only buy 50 of them back. So they lost 750 Bitcoin, and the opportunity cost of that was $85 million on that little pair trade. So remember, everything's a pair, but timing everything is also very important. So that's a little bit of Bitcoin and real estate lesson there. Sorry for going over. This is just too interesting as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, also, there's some news that IRS has reserved the right to be able to snoop on people's crypto exchanges and balances and what they're doing. And the question is, should you be concerned? And I'm very much all of, paying taxes is part of why you live in a country. Would never, ever try and avoid that as well. But some people believe, this is a cool survey from let me try to remember this, Bitcoin Breakdown, I think it was. They had the survey. And the question is, what should people do to stop snooping? Because the Supreme Court said it's okay for the IRS to snoop and surveil on people and their activities and exchanges. And the answer was, a majority says 63.3% said, time to go full self-custody and control your own destiny. And then, I don't know who Surveil Me Harder Daddy is, but that's 11.7%. Privacy Coins, 10%. Amazing how low that was on the list. And necessary for tax compliance. That's kind of the box I'd fit into the top. I don't mind if I'm surveyed. Anyway, nothing to hide. And this was a very interesting statistic from Marathon Mining. They can now apparently mine the average Bitcoin for $51,000. That's the cost to mine one whole Bitcoin. Remember, they mine about 700 a month. Call that 2,100 a quarter. And they're making probably $100 million in pure profit a quarter just from mining Bitcoin. And up until earlier this week, they were trading at exactly the value. Their market cap was exactly the value of how much Bitcoin they had in the balance sheet. And I found that to be pretty staggering. They are very profitable, but still very unloved. And but it's good to see the miners rebounding a bit this week. They were looking ready for a move. We'll see if they'll move over the weekend as Bitcoin probably breaks 110,000. Watch this space. Now, per micro, the average cost to mine, though, as far as they're concerned, is 88K. Some miners do it for 50K, some for 37,000, some for $160,000, and everything in between. If the miners continue to move up, I will do another miner update, because the big part of it now is, what do we decide to do next? Do we take profits, or do we wait for things to fly to the top? That's the $1 million question, literally. And this is also very terrifying. And I know this video it's very much about Bitcoin and hard assets, but this is something that should shake everybody who is not convinced about hard assets yet, like Bitcoin. From Kobasi, total US debt is now expected to hit $40 trillion this year. It's currently 37.1. We're adding $1 trillion every 90 days or so, but it's accelerating. Okay. And remember, at the beginning of 2020, debt was 23 trillion. So we'll be adding $17 trillion in 5 years, 6 years. Sorry. I was 2020 to 2026, nearly six full years. Never in history has the US increased so much debt so fast. And this is part of the concern that some people have out there, that the US and many other countries are just simply printing themselves into oblivion, ladies and gentlemen. And finishing with meme du jour to cheer us all up, Bitcoin ETF, primarily BlackRock and MicroStrategy, are picking up all the Bitcoin. As we've been saying for a long time, this is a treasury game. This is an institutional game. This is a pension game. This is no longer a retail game. But those retail who are here and have been in early are enjoying themselves right now. Well, these players pick it all up. And I know people grow and say, oh, it's not good that BlackRock and MicroStrategy are in there. Well, if they weren't, we'd probably be at $42,000, because retail is playing with meme coins and other things like that. So remember, it's a good thing. Thank you all for coming. This is the Bitcoin Only playlist. We'll be here after the video. and have a great weekend. I'll talk to you tomorrow for Friday Fire on the 4th of July. And we got people all over the world: Switzerland, Austria, Netherlands, Australia, a lot of Australians, a lot of Americans, Californians, people in Spain, people from Liverpool. You know who you are. And yeah, it's been a good time. Thank you all, everybody. See you tomorrow. Thank you.